Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Lions, or the Detroit Lions Weekly Update Show. Is that the name of it? I guess that's it.
That sounds good.
Let's go with it.
Yeah.
I'm in.
All right. I'm Terry Foster, and I want to introduce this young man here who is on a personal 21-0 run in life. Sean Belizean, congratulations.
You had to bring that up, didn't you?
I did.
I thought that we'd poor Kool-Aid's over there. As soon as he heard that, I saw his body kind of contort. He doesn't need to hear that. He doesn't need to hear that.
He's a grown man. He can handle it.
Things are well, Terry. Happy Easter to you and everybody else out there. Certainly for those that celebrate, enjoy the ham. I don't know why.
I'm not going to have ham today.
I don't know why it became synonymous with Easter, but here we are.
We're here.
It's one of those things.
That's true. And a guy who is always putting eye drops in his eyes, the left-hander, Matthew Earl Jenkins Broder.
Okay, there we
go.
It was almost the same middle name as last week. You had to change it up.
We had to switch it up, right?
Earl Jenkins. I'll take it. I
Okay.
sound like a pitcher from the 1930s.
I agree.
You know?
And you kind of look like Bob Feller.
Do I?
Yeah.
He threw hard.
Yeah, he did.
I wish I could throw that hard. One day.
All right, let's get all the giggles out the way. I think I got bad news, fellas. Everybody in Detroit wants the Lions to do what in the first round?
Edge.
Edge rusher.
Edge rusher. I don't think Brad Holmes is picking an edge rusher in the first round.
Not going to happen?
If you just go by what he says, I know you guys get all upset about, he's almost defiant. Like, when you read between the lines, I'm not picking an edge rusher. He's going, best player available.
I think it'll be interior offensive lineman. I really do. I've said it for a few weeks. I have a feeling the way the board configures itself, if you pay attention to that stuff, gosh, I still can't believe it's draft week. It just crept up this year, didn't it?
Unbelievable.
It's just like, what the?
But you know why it crept up on you? Because the Lions have been so bad for years.
Yep.
We were talking draft in October.
Yep. No doubt about it. I think that's exactly what it is. But, Terry, here's the thing. This is what I remind people. This is one of the funniest bits every single year. There will legitimately be people, if Brad stays at 28, mind you, okay? Mm-hmm. This is a guy that's been known to do a little of the elevator action. There will be people that lose their mind. I cannot believe how dumb this franchise is. I cannot believe that they didn't grab an edge. I don't know if people know this. There's a round 2. And then there's a round 3, and then there's a round 4. You're going to have that opportunity. And this is a guy that has shown that he can get value later in the draft, especially if you've done any kind of dive. I'm not even talking a deep dive, T. Any kind of dive. There are going to be a plethora of edge rushers available in the first 3 rounds.
Right, and there's also free agency. There's still some people out there. There's a thing called trade. You can make a trade, but Brad Holmes, when you hear him talk, he doesn't trust rookies. He does not trust rookies, so he doesn't think an edge is going to help them this year, and they need help this year. So I don't think he's going to do it. And and for the 4th straight year, whatever, fans are going to say, what is this jerk thinking? He don't know what he's doing, blah blah blah, and then 3 weeks later, you have to eat your words.
Yeah. Skydog in the chat, Skydog722. Everyone zigs, Brad zags. What we think he's going to do, he's probably going to do the opposite. Mm-hmm. And to follow up what Sean says about maybe going interior offensive lineman in the first round, Skydog followed it up again, which is my point. Why get the 3rd or 4th best defensive end, edge rusher, when he can get the 2nd best offensive line? There's a big drop-off in interior offensive line after the top, 3. You got your Gray Zables and Tate Ratledges. Donovan Jackson can play IOL. But there's edge rushers and defensive tackles all throughout the draft.
And a young man named Trey Hendrickson in Cincinnati. Don't the Bengals have to do something?
Something. Pay him or trade him.
Right. So he could be available. My personal favorite, Zadarius Smith.
Yeah.
He hasn't signed with anyone.
Huh.
The Lions have sort of talked to him. I'd like to sign him.
I would like to sign him a lot. I really would. And Terry, I think it's important for people to listen to what you're saying. Brad Holmes is almost from that Bill Parcells mold. And for people out there that don't know of Bill Parcells didn't dislike rookies. He hated rookies. Like he did. They're going to do dumb things. I mean,
Right.
that's just the way it is. You had to be some kind of special for him to put any faith in you. Now, I'm not going to go that far for Brad Holmes, but boy, to both of your guys' point, honestly, if you guys pay attention to this, there are probably in the low 30s DL and edge guys available in the first 3 rounds. The Lions could legitimately come back around in round 2 and Landon Jackson and get a DL. Now, we don't know. What if Broder shout out? What if Kenneth Grant's there? What if Kenneth Grant's sitting there? Do you sit back and go, okay, we have to take this guy. He's sitting there. So much of it is, it's funny that we do this dance because the one thing we don't know how the board's going to fall. I can tell you there'll be quarterbacks that go earlier than anybody thought. That's the one thing I can guarantee you about this draft. But we don't know how the board's going to fall T, especially around 28.
Yeah, that's true. The other thing, I remember a first round a few years ago, people were really upset he did not take a wide receiver in the first round. They need wide receivers. What's Brad Holmes thinking? You know what he did? Amon-Ra St. Brown.
What, 4th round?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Has he been all-pro a couple times already?
All right.
The man knows how to draft, especially late in the draft.
He does. So, I don't think he's doing an edge in the first round, and then people are going to go ape shit here in Detroit.
Is there a position that you absolutely don't want him to take in the first round? Mine is quarterback. Like,
Tight
would you
end.
go tight end? You're not okay with that?
Punter. They already got one.
They do, but the decisions need to be made soon. Like, they can't pay everybody. And I'm not saying Sam Laporta's the odd man out, but at what point do you start replenishing that supply of, if Colston Loveland's there at 28? What if Emeka Ibuka's there from Ohio State, a wide receiver that they really like? They've been talking about wide receivers coming in. The JMO conversation heated up this week after they had Golden in for a visit. So we don't know, but at some point they got to start replenishing that supply, unless you're going to figure out how to pay everybody, which I don't think is possible.
No, it's not. And when you're building a team, there's a couple phases. One, you got to turn a team from crap to okay to a playoff contender. But the toughest part is staying up there, because the NFL is built to punish teams who are good.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to pay all these dudes. Everybody wants money. And the fans are like, well, what about the hometown discount? No.
Mm-mm.
If you have that one opportunity to get rich, you're not giving a hometown discount.
No.
Sorry about that.
No, it's so few and far between in sports in general. It really is. I mean, when I hear people talk about that, and I think a lot of times, Terry, maybe it's some of the Red Wing fans that are apt to use that term, because let's face it, one of the rare exceptions was a guy by the name of Nick Lidstrom, who legitimately gave a hometown discount. And, this is...
How many Nick Lidstroms do you come across?
No, that's exactly it.
Right.
That's the exception to the rule, man. You know what? I agree with tight end, but let me throw one out there. And I'm convinced, especially with the Golden visit, I'm convinced it was a smokescreen.
You think so?
He's too smart to take another wide receiver in the first round. He is. Based on what you brought up, he got Amon-Ra St. Brown 112th overall. Mm-hmm. And if you look down there in that same 4th round, okay, there are a plethora of guys that you could grab. Now, the thing with the guys in the 4th round, they're all flawed by NFL standards, right? Amon-Ra St. Brown was flawed by NFL standards, and we know how that worked itself out. I like that kid from Miami, Xavier Restrepo. I think, again, smaller guy, put up huge numbers at Miami. That's it. I'm not saying him exactly, but that's the type of guy. I think you could sit back and get yourself a pretty darn good wide receiver. Do you want to pay more first-round money like to a wide receiver? I don't think that's what Brad will do. Maybe I'm trying to study the tea leaves too hard. It wouldn't be the first time, but I just don't think he's going to build a team that way.
Yeah, they're like we talked about early. It's even deeper than the edges and the defensive tackles. There's wide receivers from round 1 to round 7. So I don't think it's going to be a first rounder unless they fall in love with somebody. But there's really no need to do that.
But there's rumors that there is a wide receiver that they're looking at, and it's not your guy either. It's a guy named Tetiora McMillan.
A guy projected to be like number 3rd overall up until like the last 2 weeks. He keeps sliding. He's a great player.
Yes, and he only has 2 flaws. His speed is an issue, and he can't separate.
But boy, does he have a high football IQ? Are his hands great? Does he run great routes? Is he produce at Arizona State? Was it Arizona? Or Arizona State? Arizona.
It's Arizona.
Yeah. He's got size. Oh, but he's not a 4-3 guy.
No. He's slow.
Oh, I'm pretty sure they said the same thing about Amon-Ra St. Brown.
They did.
Same thing about Brian Branch.
Too small.
Yeah. You know what? When you know what spot you want to get to, that 0.05 of your 40 doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
I think especially when you have so many other weapons around them.
Yeah.
Okay, when guys are literally, and I mean, this is what we all envision. When you want guys running amok downfield, you have to legitimately, you have to count for him. 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 That's the type of stuff that I think that extra, as you said, 0.3 of a second, I'm not sure it matters as much.
I don't think Tim Patrick is that fast anymore.
No.
But he's smart, and he knows how to get open.
Yep.
Well, there's a deeper issue here that we hear the fact that the Lions may go for a wide receiver in the first round. Are they giving up on J-Mo?
It's insanity to even talk about that.
And they'll pick up his 5th-year option. They'll analyze to see if he does something stupid this next season, and then if he does, he gone.
How do you feel about that?
I don't.
Get your answer,
you know
T.
what? I don't want to give up on him.
Nope.
I know he's a clown, but the more days you go, the more mature you become.
Yeah.
So I think he's less likely to do something clownish. I love his speed. I love his playmaking ability because at least I have heard this all the time in the NFL. You got to have playmakers. There's a bunch of good players in the NFL, but they're not playmakers. J-Mo, for all his flaws, is a playmaker. You got to count for him. The defense has to make changes because of him, because of that speed.
And you got to build him a custom helmet because he has something sharp coming out of his forehead. He's a unicorn. There's nobody else like him in the league. Why give up on him? I'm pretty sure, Terry, correct me if I'm wrong, any of the stuff he's gotten in trouble with, was it violent? Was he domestic abuse? Was it... No, he's made immature decisions.
But
He's been at Coney Island at 2 a.m. Whatever.
Hey,
he's
man,
a 4-2 guy.
I've been at the Coney Island at 3 in the morning.
Yeah.
And didn't want to leave.
And I got extra cheese on my chili cheese fries, too.
Yeah, bad decision.
Bad decision.
At the time, it was a
Bad
good
decision.
decision.
Bad decision.
Next day, you paid for it.
Oh, yeah, you do pay for it.
Yeah.
But remember a young man named Joe Mixon?
Yeah.
Domestic abuse in college. You know, it goes away. Even if J-Mo had been kicking somebody's ass, if you can play, it goes away.
Yep.
It's an unfortunate thing, but it goes away.
Yeah. But you don't give up on someone that talented, that unique. A player that can help out your offense without touching the ball. When he's on the field, things are different.
And you said it. What J-Mo's contribution to this offense isn't even in the numbers he puts up. It just isn't. I'm sorry. And Terry, do you know what it reminds me of? I went back and forth with our buddy Flannel Sam about this last summer.
Oh, my God.
And you know what it is? And I said to Flannel Sam, with much love and appreciation, I can relate to this. I used to be stats guy. I did. I openly admit it. And then I started to heal myself from being stats guy, because what happens is you see guys come here. I always bring up that Hall of Fame team from the Red Wings, okay? If you thought that Brett Hull was going to come here and score 70 goals a year, you're out your mind. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to. He's one of so many up front. And that's what I told Flannel Sam. I said, his numbers aren't going to be defined by 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns. If that's your definition of success, you are going to be greatly disappointed. His success comes in those things that both of you talked about: being the unicorn, being the playmaker, being the guy that can change the tone like nobody else on that field. With all their, well, maybe Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs has that it factor. But other than that, with all those guys, who's got that boom factor, right? It's J-Mo.
Yeah, he does. I mean, the speed is just crazy. When he's running, it's fun to watch. The only time I ever want to watch a dude run is in the Olympics, except for J-Mo. When he's turning that corner, he gone.
He's got those long strides.
Yep.
He's tall. He's tough. He is everything they want in a football player. We're talking about a few off-field incidents, but he's not a soft diva wide receiver. He'll lower his shoulder at the end of that. And you know what? This is nothing against Antoine Randall, who's a fantastic coach. Good riddance. Now he's in Chicago, but I'm not trying to slander him.
But you are. So go ahead.
No. I'm trying to build up Scotty Montgomery and his relationship with J-Mo. He's the new wide receiver coach and assistant head coach. Everything you could want in a coach or mentor for Jameson Williams is Scotty Montgomery, the perfect coach for him. I see him taking his game to the next level. What does that mean numbers-wise? Who knows? But J-Mo is going to be a different type of professional football player next year because of Scotty Montgomery.
Okay, well, I'm waiting to see this.
Yeah.
But,
You don't have to wait too much longer.
he needs a mentor.
Scotty.
And a mentor that's going to be rough with him.
Scotty. You see what he does with the running backs all these last couple of years? We get him on video here.
Okay, a mentor who will call him an asshole.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
I thought you were going to say Scotty.
Yeah, Scotty will call him an asshole too.
Right. So if he gets that, I don't want to give up on him yet.
No.
And I've been teetering on this too. A couple years ago, listened to the noise. I'm like, I don't know about this guy, but it always came back. Don't let him go. Don't let him go. Don't let him go.
I don't think anything he did is unforgivable. Dumb can be eliminated, okay? Bad guy, I'm not sure you can eliminate that. I don't think that Jameson Williams is a bad guy.
Not at all.
At all.
No,
All
he's
right?
throwing out $100 bills to kids. How
Right.
can you be bad?
Dumb is one thing. We've all been dumb, okay? I had a strong case of the dumb. I'm not gonna lie to you. Very strong case. I wasn't sure that there was any kind of fix to it. And then you know what happens? You grow up, you start to decide there are right decisions, there are wrong decisions, and hopefully that guy's down on the path. I think for whatever reason there have been some people in this town that have been unfairly harsh on that guy. And that is not a shot at you, Flannel Sam, if you're watching, because he's kind of said, okay, I get it, I gave that up and everything. But I think there have been people that for whatever reason have been a little too harsh on him, Terry. And I'm going to say it again. What he provides isn't necessarily reflected in his numbers at the end of the day.
Right. People expect athletes to be perfect. I mean, we do like the same stuff, and it's okay. Forgive me, but if he does it, I'm gonna dog him.
Yep, Terry, on that point, we got 2 super chats. I'm going to go with the one that fits in right what you're talking about second. Rando Smalls, $5 super chat, Rando. Thank you. All the experts say the meat of this draft is 30 to 100 picks. A lot of value in the second round. I'm sure we'll get to that. But Byrne says for $5. Byrne, thank you, man. My only issue is we drool over drafting an a-hole, and then we draft J-Mo, who is a knucklehead, and we want to trade him away once he becomes good. I know you're an advocate if you need some a-holes on the team. There are people out there who want to trade J-Mo, but also want to draft James Pierce. Like, there's a weird seesaw happening now with some of these, what type of character these guys have.
I think the Lions have built their culture up so that they can absorb guys who are not good guys. They can do it. And plus, in the NFL, you need a certain percentage of guys you just don't like. Man, that guy's an asshole. I hope I don't meet him in the middle, in the dark alley. But you need that, especially on defense. Just some dudes that are just mean and vicious and nasty. This is not a choir boy league.
We talk out of both sides of our mouth so much in this town because, Terry, you just said the magic word, the C word, culture. Mm-hmm. Everybody and their brother has talked about the culture the last couple of years, okay? When in Allen Park, do as the Allen Parkians do, okay? And I think I can't help but remember, Rasheed Wallace. People love Rasheed Wallace in this town. Let me tell you something, Broder. We lived it. Mm-hmm. When he first came here, that was not the case. No. It was about 90 to 10. What are we bringing this a-hole in here for? He's going to upset the apple cart, all of that stuff. And you know what? The culture, he fit right in. help lead them to a championship and obviously that great era that they had. Terry, I'm with you. I think if you bring a guy like that in, you're going to get a few of the veterans, a few of the boys going, hey, man, listen, we don't do that shit here. We do not do that shit here. And I'm going to tell you what, Dan Campbell isn't going to tell you this. You do that shit, I'm going to pull you up. I'm going to beat the fuck out of you. Okay? Just know that. Okay? And if I can't, I have Matthew Broder next to me. So when I'm getting my butt whooped, Matthew Broder's going to come over and drop the people's elbow on the back of your head. You know, I mean, that's what I'm talking about, right?
You know who else, quote unquote, didn't fit the culture for the Pistons? Chauncey Billups.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He was a guy bouncing around and had issues. The bad boys, Mark McGuire. He was supposedly a bad guy, but he came in and fit right in.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if this one worked out or didn't for the Detroit Lions and Ndamukong Suh.
I'll say it worked out, and then the organization screwed it up.
Did they ever?
Screw it up.
Did they ever?
They didn't know he wanted out.
That's ridiculous.
Funny, fans, people in the media, they all knew he was on the first train out of here.
No.
And the Lions were like, no, he wants to stay here. We talk to him every day. He wants to be here.
Yeah, and Bregman wanted to come to Detroit too.
Do you know what, Terry? We were just talking about this with Neil Rule on Big D Energy. The revisionist history about this. We could have had Aaron Donald. We could have had Aaron Donald. You have to remember what the starting point is of that. It's exactly what you just said. The guy in charge was convinced that Ndamukong Suh was coming back. Well, why would we need Aaron Donald if we have Ndamukong Suh and we have Ndamukong Suh locked up? Right? That was his. I'm not saying you're wrong that, yeah, we should have done that instead of Eric Ebron. But you have to remember the starting point there. Martin Mayhew was convinced Ndamukong Suh was coming back. So much so, that I know for a fact the day after he left, they sat in a room and, like, us three doofuses went, okay, what's next? Like, that's real. It happened. I mean, that's how insane it was.
Well, see, I used to be in the Sioux squad until I got kicked out. And I heard every day he was trying to get out. Am I? Hello? Okay. I scream and I kill those batteries. But anyway, we're talking about Ndamukong Suh. I used to be in the Sioux squad until I got kicked out. Because of a really bad interview on a previous radio show I used to be on. And then, but I heard every day he was out of here. There's nothing they could do. He wanted greener pastures. He wanted more money. He was convinced, like Calvin Johnson and like Barry Sanders, that you can't win here. So I'm out of here. And Matthew Stafford. Those are some high profile players that just said, okay, can't win here. Let me get my ass out of here. And he was one of those.
The tax break was huge. You know that man is all about business. For people that don't know that, I mean, Terry, you probably know it as well as anybody. He was all about business. That's why, to be honest with you, I'm surprised he didn't end up in Texas. Mm-hmm. Like, with the lack of income tax and everything. But no, you know what? It's funny if you talk to guys from that team. All right, and we all knew in 2014 how good that team was, how good that defense was. You ask guys to a man, all right? And Terry and I know he's had conversations about it because we've talked about it. Those guys all knew this is our window. Unlike where we're at today, unlike where we're at 10-plus years later, these guys understand that window's open, okay? When 2014 happened and they went 11-5, and then they kind of, obviously we know what happened in the Dallas game. They all knew. They knew that window was shut. They knew it. And if you look at some of the reactions after that, it tells you all you need to know about those guys knowing the window was shut.
Yeah, they had a 1 month window, and it didn't take advantage of it. But, the other thing, if you talk to Sue's teammates, they knew he was out there. He was leaving. You'd always ask them, what do you guys do with Ndamukong Suh? What do you guys go out? She says, oh, he don't even talk to us.
Yep.
He comes in, practices, and he's gone.
And it's really weird because, you know what, I can't help but think of another prominent player. It didn't matter that much if you're out there making plays, okay? But if you're the quarterback of the team and you're out there struggling, that's when it becomes a factor, and that's with Joey Harrington. Like, that's when I knew, I mean, look, anybody with half a brain in their head knew that Joey Harrington wasn't very good. To me, Terry, it didn't take very long. But, you have to dance a dance and go, all right, let's give him some time. But then when you heard some guys first starting with a murmur and then getting pretty loud circa 2005, then it became a point in time where, like, they got to get him out of here, man.
Joey Harrington, the starting quarterback for the Detroit Lions, he won. They had the Super Bowl here, and he wanted to be a big shot and wanted to get into all the parties. Mm-hmm. Right? They wouldn't let him in because who the hell are you? Then he wanted to hang out with teammates. Nobody wanted to go out with him, so he had to go out by himself or his boys from Oregon.
Yeah, or practice the piano.
Now, I'll take this a little deeper about his teammates saying he sucked. I was doing a story for the Detroit News. Joey Harrington, I had to sit down with him. I'm going to rebound. I want to bring a championship to Detroit, all this stuff. So afterwards, Mooch was the coach. I lobbed a couple of softballs to him. He didn't bite. He's like, yeah, whatever. I've never had a coach basically tell you one of his players is no good.
Yep.
But he did.
Both of the coaches did that he worked with. I mean, think about it. I mean, both of those guys were just kind of like, okay, this isn't happening and everything. And I remember Dre Bly got a lot of crap, Terry, thinking back about that for being quite vocal, especially after Mooch got fired. And some people got angry at that. And it was kind of funny. I told one of my buddies, it's cool to talk about this stuff years later because there's things you couldn't say that now you can say. He just spoke for a lot of guys in that room, okay? Back then you didn't do this stuff as publicly, all right? But Terry, you know this. He spoke for a lot of guys. He was an island. He just was off on his own. And they felt that he undercut Mooch. I mean, Mooch was over his head. Mooch got exposed here. But the guys liked Mooch. A lot of the guys really, really liked Mooch. And if it came down to, all right, are we going to move forward with this guy who isn't the answer at quarterback, or is this a Mooch situation? A lot of guys were siding with Mooch in those circumstances. So it wasn't going to happen with either one of them.
Right, but of the coaches in the Matt Millen era, the players felt the only one who had a chance was Steve Mariucci.
Yep, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. They when usually you side with your boy on the team, right? Guys, it was about Steve Mariucci. Mm-hmm. It really was. And he didn't have a chance here because, you know what, how many times do we talk, like today, about coordinators coming in? And you know what? No. My system works. I know what you do well, Broder. I know what you do well, Terry. I'm still trying to figure out what you do well, but I'm not going to let you do what you do well. You need to fit into my system. And to that, I say, fuck that. I'm going to make my system work your strengths, work whatever his strengths are. And that was Joey Harrington in that West Coast offense type of thing was never going to work. Look, Joey Harrington anywhere wasn't going to work. I think Joey himself would finally admit it to this day. But you know what? It Terry, as you know, it built to a crescendo, and we started with all the, golly gee, this is a learning experience. And I called it Joey Blue Skies. And you think back to stuff like that, and it is immensely different today. And that's why the word culture is so important. I don't think when you're talking about the Detroit Lions, I don't think we can say it enough, Terry, how much this has changed. Because we had a front row seat. You want to know what a bad culture is? Go walk through the Detroit Lions facility or be in a post-game situation at Ford Field after November 1st. It was a mess, T. A mess all the time. It was always a mess. So, things have changed. And because of that, I don't think you should be so scared to bring in that guy, Now, sometimes if the guy's a huge douche, well,
well, don't bring in 15 of them.
Right.
But you can bring in one.
That guy. So I'd love to get that guy impact player, but, again, Terry, like you said, man, please, you guys, let's not do this. There's a round on Thursday, then Friday, then Saturday. Then there's a free agent period.
Oh, yeah.
Then there's trades. And the one thing that the NFL has loved to do in the last few years is that trade deadline. And now all of a sudden, it'll never be baseball. Baseball's something different. But it's still pretty stinking cool that now we're hearing trades in the National Football League.
Right. But bottom line, all right, edge rusher. They're gonna pick an edge rusher in the first round.
I don't think so.
I don't
Home
think so
team?
If
I
they
don't think
pick
so.
one, they're trading up for him.
Yep.
If they stay at 28, they're not taking an
I
edge
don't think
rusher.
so. I'm with you.
Yeah, because Brad Holmes is pretty defiant. Basically said that all you guys are stupid. He's talking about people in the media and the fans. I'm not drafting someone for today. He doesn't trust rookies. If he does pick an edge, he's picking one for 3 or 4 years down the road. That's not going to help you this year.
No.
So he's not going to pick him.
Yeah.
That's why, after hearing what you just said, he said, I feel even stronger it is an IOL. Because when you look at the definition of a few years down the line, take a look at our offensive line, okay? I mean, seriously, as is, how large is the window? I'm not talking about the window for the team, okay? I'm talking about the window for that offensive line as a unit. I don't think there's a long term there, right? So if you have a guy, he spot start, comes in, gets a few reps, whatever the case may be, get some of that valuable stuff to unleash him on the world next year or 2 years from now, that's the type of move that I think he's referring to, T.
Right. If Sorsdale had worked out as an offensive lineman, they may not be looking at a guard.
No.
Muhammad has worked out, but I think they want more depth. Those positions, you rotate them in, you rotate them out because they're fat and get tired. So I think he's looking at that down the road. Now, I think he's more likely to pick a wide receiver than a rush in because he's looking for the replacement for Jameis Winston. That's what he's looking at
You might, Travis, you might.
because he don't trust him.
I don't know. I disagree. And that's just my opinion. I think he's with Jamison Williams. It might come down to money. Jamison Williams is earning, if he has another big year, $35 million. Like, he's still got 2 years on this rookie contract. I think they love him. Do you draft a replacement, a new number 3? Do you trust Tim Patrick? You got for 1 more year. Khalif Raymond. Like they do like wide receivers, so you might draft a wide receiver.
4th round.
I think it's late or later. There are just some really talented ones. I like Jalen Noel out of Iowa State. What's that? Troy Holton out of Colorado State. There's wide receivers all over the place.
Yeah.
Unless there's a guy that he wants and he falls. Maybe he's in love with Emeka Egbuka and wants a couple St. Browns there on his offense. Who wouldn't want that? Maybe he pulls the trigger, but I still think in that scenario he trades back. There's some dudes you can get in the early 2nd round. Someone wants to come up and get a quarterback late. Who knows where Jackson Dart goes? Jalen Milroe sneaking into 1st rounds.
Happens every year.
Every year.
Yeah, and the replacement of Matthew Stafford,
Yeah.
possibly.
And those teams want a 5th year on their rookie quarterbacks because they're not playing year 1. Brad Holmes, he'll take pick number 52. He'll take 44.
You guys, when it finally got through my skull that quarterbacks are going to go, you got to remember, not that long ago, people were arguing Jackson Dart's not going to go in the 1st round.
Right.
Okay? I mean, and I think year by year, we're all gradually learning a little more. When Christian freaking Ponder went in the 1st round, that's when I said, okay, the NFL as I knew it is over. There's such a premium on the quarterback now. They are going to give a mid every chance and the opportunity to become the man. And and we've seen a lot of teams make that same mistake and say, well, he probably isn't the 15th pick overall. He probably isn't the 20th pick overall. But quarterback's so important, so we have to make a jump at this guy. And you're going to see it again. I'm not going to sit here and say that Milroe is going to go 1st round, okay? But he's going to go higher than you think. Just like we're seeing people with Jackson Dart, all of a sudden, Terry, you're not crazy to suggest people are killing Spencer Raxter. Spencer Raxter's going, dude's going to be good, and he's going to go early. People are killing him. And now you take a look at all this stuff. The premium on quarterbacks is real, and that might benefit the Lions.
Yeah, but doesn't that play into what Brad Holmes says, don't chase a position?
Yep.
Don't chase it because you get yourself in trouble.
Not all people are built like Brad Holmes. You got some questionable GMs out there. Jackson Dart's going to be a top 10 pick.
Let's let other people's weaknesses be our strength, right? Take advantage of that, and then you build yourself up where you're sitting there at 28. Again, you guys, this isn't crazy talk. All the times, all the draft shows guys like Key and I have done over the years, I always used to laugh at people when they'd call in and go, "Yeah, I see a trade up scenario," and I just shake my head because the amount of times you hear about trade ups and the reality of trade ups are two different numbers. And then Brad Holmes came to town.
Yeah, but what do Lion fans want every year? They always want the Lions to trade down because they need those extra bodies, but they don't need that anymore.
No,
that's because the roster. I'm not saying it's set. A roster is never set, but there's so much talent on this team. You don't need these draft picks.
You know what'd be funny? What if he did the opposite? What if he went back, based on what you just said? If, like, I think it was Byrne, and I tend to agree with you, Byrne. If what Byrne says is correct, and there's a lot of depth in the top 100 picks, which you are 100% correct. I'm convinced of it, okay? What if you move backwards? I see you waving your hand. Hi, young Justin. Are you sober yet? What if you move backward and got extra picks in the top 100?
I just think that people are forgetting over the last couple of years, do we forget how much of a premium there have been on offensive players? And especially the quarterbacks. We've seen guys like Bo Nix go a whole round above their projection. And I think that it's going to remain true in this draft. There's a lot of good offensive players. And we talk about the depth at the positions like edge, interior D-line, and offensive guard. And we're just going to be in the perfect position to take advantage of a draft where that's not a premier position that a lot of teams are looking for, and we're going to be able to have this crop. Like, I see Kenneth Grant falling to us in a lot of mocks. If that's there, and I'm Brad Holmes, BPA, let's go, baby.
100%.
Pick.
You know, the Lions always seem to get a break during the draft. I
wish Julius Peppers fell one spot.
Right, yeah. Well, I'm talking about under the Brad Holmes.
I know.
But you know what would benefit Brad Holmes? If Shadur Sanders and
Cam Ward, Jackson Dart.
No. If Dart and Sanders are still there, somebody's going to trade up and give them something sweet.
Yeah. So you want the quarterbacks to fall.
Yeah.
Oh my
versus having 3 or 4 go earlier than expected, and a good player falls to you at 28, or good players are there to trade, to take or trade back.
You could benefit both ways, but I'm kind of hoping that they're there so that there's going to be a bucket list of people that Brad Holmes wants, and so that makes the bucket bigger. And so you're like, I'll trade back, and then they can get some draft capital, either for next year or later in the draft. Or
I love it. I look at the Giants. I mean, the Giants made a big stink this week, and you know what? Again, it could be a smoke screen. This is lying season, okay? It is, and I'm not taking LION. LYING. This is lying season. A lot of teams, for all we know, Brad came out there and lied this past week. We don't know, okay? Well, I guess we'll find out. But, Terry, that's such a great point because the Giants came out and said, who says we have to take a quarterback? What look what we have. The quarterbacks suck. Everybody and their brother knows it, okay? But Tommy DeVito and Jameis Winston and Russ and all that, they have to take a quarterback. But let's play a game and pretend they don't take a quarterback in the first round. And all of a sudden, Terry, your scenario plays itself out. And you're sitting there at 28, and you have a couple of those names out there, okay? Or at least guys that, okay, it's actually kind of surprising they're there. They're at what, 35?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to spread their wings and come vulture in, man. And that's when the Lions sit back and go, all right, what are you prepared to do? We'll take your 35. What else are you giving us? Yeah. And that's when you take advantage of that which Byrne talked about early, and some of that depth in the top 100 picks. Get yourself some extra capital, maybe T. A couple extra picks next year, too. I mean, let's see what happens. That's a big move to make for a team.
Can you imagine a New York team, you get Abdul Carter and Jalen Milroe in the first round? Or if you're the Browns, how about injecting some life into that organization? You take Travis Hunter, and then you wait around, and at 28, Lions are up, and
so let me ask you
want to
something,
go get
young
Milroe.
fella. You think Milroe is actually going to be a success in the NFL?
I don't. I'm not a huge Milroe believer, but I think he might be better than Shedeur Sanders.
Oh, come on.
No.
What? Shedeur Sanders doesn't do it for me.
You know what? Here's
How?
all right. You
He's
brought
not
him up.
that great. He's
Okay.
good. He's
Neither
he's a
is
fine
Milroe.
Right. I think Milroe has a much higher ceiling. Milroe has a much lower floor, but what he can do, the dude has an absolute cannon. He's 4'3", and you know what? Played a couple years under Nick Saban. There aren't many of those players left. Everybody says the best things about him, his character, his faith, his fam. There's not one bad thing you could say about Jalen Milroe.
I can. You know how to talk about big booties?
Yeah?
I don't like my quarterback to have a big booty. How about that?
No?
Yes. I
What
don't
if-
want my quarterback waddling.
Well, fortunately, the Lions don't need a quarterback because they got a top 5 MVP candidate in Jared Goff.
Terry, and to go off what you're saying, Milroe is one of the worst short and medium level throwers in the entire draft.
Bam.
Shedeur Sanders, even though he has his knocks and he is very mobile, runs around maybe a little too much, he still has a gun and is elite at his placement of the ball. There's
And he's
a lot
accurate,
of times
right, very
where
accurate.
he makes very, very NFL level throws, especially to Travis Hunter, who is an NFL level wide receiver, and he can put that ball where only his wide receiver can get that. And I think that's a quality that a lot of guys in the draft don't have.
For all the superlatives that Broder mentioned, though, and I'm not suggesting that any of you said this, that's why Milroe's going to go early. His pedigree, Nick Saban, all of those variables that you mentioned are why. You guys set your watch to it. You can laugh. I don't think he's very good. Point blank. I don't think he's very good. He's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
You're out your mind if you don't think he's going to go. He's going to go.
100%.
You're going to be sitting at home. Maybe you're going to be watching the draft coverage here. No, forget that. You're going to be watching the draft coverage here. And when we all react, honestly, I'm going to have a moment. I'm going to go like this. And I'm looking right at you, mister. I'm going to wag the finger, and I'm looking right at you because he's going to go. Set your watch to it because of those things that you said, Broder. I don't think any of us think he's any good, right?
No, but
he's going to go.
But yeah, and the rumor is the Rams might stock him, like put him on the back
Where
shelf.
he should be. He needs a year or two.
He let Matthew Stafford cook for a couple more years, and then when Stafford gets so old that he can't see, then Milroe comes in with all that training, and then he's their next quarterback.
That's the type of situation he should be in. Or imagine him, maybe long term it doesn't work, but him learning under Jalen Hurts. A similar type of quarterback. Wherever he is, he should not be playing in the NFL next year. He should not be getting quality minutes in the NFL next year. He needs to learn. He needs to get better. He's not that good yet, but he has skill.
It's funny how we're getting back to that, T, because he and I grew up in an era where you always had an understudy.
Mm-hmm.
Every team had their understudy, okay? In the NFL, you didn't see that for a long, long time, okay? Well, why am I going to draft a rookie and stash him? Why would I do that, okay? You're seeing some teams do that a little bit more now, and it's kind of coming back to that. And T, that wouldn't be a bad idea. I worry about Matthew Stafford as a human being. I'll say I always liked Matthew. I did. I always liked Matthew. I'm not one of those people. When he left, Detroit Rams, you can take that stuff and stick it as far up your ass as humanly possible, okay?
So you didn't get your T-shirt.
I never got my T-shirt. I'm not going to, quote-unquote, root for Matthew Stafford, but I'm not going to hate on him either, right? Okay? I always kind of liked the guy. I'm not going to lie. But my man's taking a beating, dude. He is taking a beating. And there were times last year where it was like, ugh. This game takes a toll on you, man, and I think that toll's starting to mount up on Matthew.
Can I bring up something that makes me a bad person? I am bad
You had a
sometimes.
Detroit Rams shirt?
I wore the Detroit Rams shirt just to piss people off.
Oh, so you were trolling.
All right,
I was
then,
trolling.
okay. You know what?
okay.
All right, now, yeah, you're okay. Yeah,
Right.
that's fine.
They
That's
said,
fine.
man,
You
take
can
that
pass
damn
it.
shirt off. Nope. Wearing it. I got a rise out of you. I'm not taking this off. In fact, I might tattoo it on my body.
Do it.
Like a petulant child.
Right.
Take that shirt off. No. That was it. Oh, it drove me out of my mind. That drove me out of my mind. And
If I'd known that, I would have wore that today.
You should. You should. You
Oh,
can
Joe-
put it with the group that is rooting for Ben Johnson to have success. You know, we love our old coaches and players.
Can I tell you what I wanted out of Matthew Stafford? You know what I wanted out of Matthew Stafford? I wanted him to fall flat on his face.
Yeah.
Because it helped my team.
Yeah.
If he fell flat on his face, those picks that we got, like the second one, become better picks.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I want. I don't want him hurt. I don't want nothing like that. I don't wish that. Sorry, I don't need that mojo in my life, okay? But I wanted him and the Rams to put up back-to-back 4 or 5 win seasons because that meant better picks come our way. Those first rounders then become better picks. Obviously, they won a Super Bowl. We made it count anyway. And then the next year they fell on their face and it helped us out. But, man, I'm sorry. You know what I want? I want what helps my team. That's what I want.
You know what? And you're right. I'm going to say something that I know is wrong, but that's the way I felt. I wanted the Rams to win the Super Bowl. You know why? To show what a janky organization the Lions were.
that.
To show you what junk you were rooting for here in Detroit. That it was all Matthew Stafford's fault. Well, you go to a real organization, you see what he's capable of.
Yeah. You know.
Now the Lions are a real organization.
Yeah. Yeah. Be nice adding Odell Beckham Jr., adding Von Miller. There's all Matthew Stafford. Mm-hmm.
It drove me out of my mind, Terry, that it, so many times, whether we want to admit it or not, we didn't compare ourselves to the rest of the National Football League. We compared ourselves to the Lions. And it was such bad logic. And so, Terry, to me, when they won that Super Bowl and the much maligned Matthew Stafford won that Super Bowl, that's when you sat back and said, okay, if you guys can't see what the real problem is, who the real villain has been for so many years, okay, I got to rest my case now. Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defense rests its case. And it was never about hate, and it was never about, you guys shouldn't go to the games and things like that. No, it was like, open your eyes. I would say it all the time. We revered the Jim Caldwell years. I want you to think about that. We revered the Jim Caldwell years.
Because it was so pathetic before. But here's a word that I hear around the Lions camp that I never heard before in my entire dealing with him in 25, 30 years. You know what that magical word is?
What's that?
Championship.
Mm-hmm.
They never talked about winning a championship in the 70s or 80s, 90s, ever.
Never.
It was this. When they hired someone, we're gonna win some football games. Everybody wins football games. We're going to be competitive.
We got a real good chance in the Central. Things like that. I mean, honestly, Terry, you're right. We grew up with that shit.
Now they aren't scared to talk about it.
No.
They limit it. Once the season starts, Dan Campbell's like, all right, we're going to chill out on talking about Super Bowl. But that's the goal. We expect to be there. It's an expectation. And that's what we should all expect as fans, as people in the media. This is a team that needs to compete for championships moving forward.
You know what would happen if somebody mentioned Super Bowl around there? They had a guy that would super glue your lips together so you couldn't say it again. Because we don't talk about that around here.
No, we don't.
They do.
Everybody was guilty of it, whether we want to admit it or not. The mediocre was wonderful. I mean, going and losing in the first round, but golly gee, we had a really good defense and we had 11 wins. Or even the last playoff appearance they made in 2016, we were 9-4. Proceeded to lose the last 3 games and just got punked in Seattle. I'm sorry, I'm not gonna celebrate stuff like that. But as Lion fans, I'm not crapping on people. All we had was to compare that to other Lion failures of the past. Instead of looking at, man, look at the way the Green Bay Packers operate. Okay, look at the way they get it done. I hate their guts, but gosh damn it, every year they got a legit shot. They haven't mixed in a Super Bowl in a while. But gosh damn it, they got a legit shot. And that's the stuff that drove me nuts.
Plus, they're in Green Bay in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
Nobody wants to play there. Nobody wants to go there. But they're still competitive every year.
They do.
So they got something going on there.
They do. And you look at players that they've added, that the Vikings have added, and the Bears. You look at what they're trying to do and how they're trying to catch up to and stop the Lions. That's where I keep going back to Sean's thoughts about taking an IOL in the first round or very early. It's because those teams are trying to stack the box and bring pressure up the middle to fool with Jared Goff, to make them have to go outside, to make Jared Goff have to get rid of the ball quicker. Why not just reinforce that interior? The interior defensive linemen, we talked about it last week, they keep getting paid more and more. The Chris Jones, Christian Wilkins, the money is now floating to that defensive line, into the interior. What comes next is the interior offensive lineman. Why not go and reinforce that this year? First, second round.
What other evidence do football fans need to see that the trenches win in the National Football League? I'm serious. It's not like, now it's to the point of absurdity. I know we all like shiny things. We do. Ooh, you know what I mean? We all like shiny things, but I'll tell you what, T. I heard Tony Dungy say this about 15 years ago, and it stuck with me. The National Football League today is, what can your quarterback do to the opposition, and what can you do to the opposition's quarterback to make his life miserable? That's the NFL today.
It is. I mean, who's the best player in the National Football League?
Patrick Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes. We saw how devastating he looked when he didn't have an offensive line. We saw when Philadelphia got after him, and then a few years ago, I think it was San Francisco got on his ass. He couldn't do anything.
Tampa.
Oh, it was Tampa,
Yeah.
right. He couldn't do anything.
Just like Tom Brady. Tom Brady became the greatest quarterback I've ever seen, okay? And if you remember, Tom Brady looked incredibly mortal, especially that second loss to the Giants. When all of a sudden the Giants, much maligned defensive line, you got a couple back to end the season, you got a couple more back once the playoffs started, and you're going, oh, shit. They made Tom Brady's life miserable. He looked like a mere mortal. That isn't supposed to happen. T, you're right. Patrick Mahomes, that game against Tampa, he was miserable.
He looked like a Lions quarterback.
He did, right? That's exactly it. So,
And then the Eagles. And then the Eagles did it. And the Eagles are a team that the Lions sort of need to follow their blueprint, or we can compare the two. And I think it's why a lot of people don't understand how important this draft is for the Lions. They've done a great job to this point, building this team, building the foundation. What the Eagles have done over the last several years, last decade, they draft great. They save some of those players. They pay some of those players. They build their core, but they let a lot of good players walk because they keep drafting better. The Lions have now paid some of the players from that first draft. They have 6 or 7 Pro Bowlers, a couple All-Pros in who they've drafted. You're not going to be able to pay everybody, so you need to start replenishing this draft. How they do it, we don't know. We could guess how they're going to do it, but this is a huge draft for them if they want consistent winning.
It's not a huge draft for next season, though.
Right.
Yes.
It's huge for the
But
organization.
for down the road.
Yes.
Yep.
But
Does
people want next season.
Right.
They want.
I know,
we're one
but Brad
piece away.
Holmes has said nobody can help me this year in the draft.
I want to play chess instead of checkers. I want that general manager. And you brought it up. You know why Philly stayed relevant? You know why Phillies makes it? They have one of the best general managers in all the sports. Period.
down.
Whether we want to admit it or not, I know that hurts. I just grabbed my heart. I had a heart I don't like saying that.
No.
But you know what? That's the truth.
It's Easter. You're an honest man.
Yeah, it's that's the truth. And I want the guy to play chess. And this goes back to what Terry said at the very beginning of the show. You can still go make those moves. You can still go, hey, I don't care what anybody says. Another man's trash can be another man's treasure, okay? You can get some help that way, and you can make that big, bold move that I think we waited for the last couple of years. Now, I'm not sitting back saying it's going to happen, okay? But, if the Hendrickson, right? Okay,
Right.
what do we, ring, 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 hello, what do we need to do? What do we need to do?
Yeah, we know you're in a jam.
Yep. You just tell me what's our starting point, and then we'll talk like adults, and we'll try to figure something out. Are you telling
And
me?
if that doesn't work out, Zadarius Smith, who did he sign with?
Nobody.
Oh, nobody. Oh, my God.
Does that? Okay, all right. Does that tell you he might want to be here? Am I reading too
I
much
think
into
he
that?
wants to be here.
Okay.
But, the organization and his people are just playing footsies. You got to play footsies for a little bit. And then you come around and say, okay, we got it.
A little flirting under the table.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like they're getting into the spoon position. They're not quite docking yet,
Yeah.
but they're about to spoon. They're about to spoon.
And I think that because there hasn't really been anything like surfacing from other teams about Zadarius Smith, I think that because the market for a veteran edge rusher like that is so limited because the team that's not in contention doesn't really need him, I think that it just puts the Lions in the perfect position to sign him back to a deal that was lower than they initially had him before they cut him. And I think it really sets up perfectly for them.
He's the type of player, and on that same topic, after the draft, once teams did they get their edge rusher in the first round, or did they kind of settle for a guy in the 5th or 6th? They'll see how it shakes out for teams, including the Lions. How much do we need Zadarius Smith? If the Lions come away with Nick Scorton and Josiah Stewart or two edge rushers, they probably
That's exactly it.
Yes, they probably don't need to sign Zadarius Smith, but if they get that one guy, I still say bring Zadarius Smith in for a year. Why would a team with a first-year defensive coordinator not want Zadarius Smith in that room?
And he wants to be here.
Yeah, I think
That's
so
the
too.
thing.
I think he loves it here.
Look, this is the way I'm hoping it plays out.
Yes.
The Lions re-sign Zadarius Smith. I would love for them to trade for Hendrickson, but I don't think that's going to happen. But the fallback is signing Zadarius. You draft somebody in the 4th, 5th round and let magic happen with Brad Holmes.
Mm-hmm.
Then you get your young bucks for later on, and then you get Smith for this year, maybe next year.
Yeah. I'm not mad at
Capiche?
that. I'm not mad at that. I do want him to take an edge rusher before round 4, but nonetheless, I don't think they have to in the first round. I like your concept. I don't think they will either. I don't think so either.
I think when you what is the 4th round pick? It's 130 overall?
130.
Okay. I think you could get a guy there. You could definitely get one in the 3rd round. There's no doubt in my mind. You might be able to get a guy there. I mean, that's how deep this is. I don't know. I counted just off the top of my head, I think it was 33 D lineman edge kind of options, and I think 18 edge options just in the first 3 rounds alone. Okay? And then you could fall back in the 4th round. Under your scenario, I'm not going to complain too much. It depends. Again, guys, so much of the conversation depends on how the board falls. Using Terry's scenario, if a bunch of those quarterbacks go, and then a bunch of more quarterbacks go, I really like this kid at Slapdick State. I think the scouts have really overlooked him, and he was a 6-star. And I'll make shit up. I don't give a crap. Maybe one of those guys fall to where Terry's talking about, you know?
Then maybe you pick a guy in the 4th round with great potential, but like his arms are half an inch too short. Put a prosthetic hand on him and let him go.
Yeah, whatever it takes.
Right.
Whatever it takes.
I don't care. But, it's always some stuff like that. Well, his wingspan, it's only 32 and a half inches. Okay, let's make it 35.
You
With
know
the
them, they like
prosthetic
their
hand.
6'7", 275-pound edge rushers. Anything less than that, they're not even going to consider.
Pterodactyl arms. I mean, some of the things you hear, it's incredible.
Oh, you know who else I was told had pterodactyl arms? Randy Moss.
Yes.
How did that work out? Hall of Fame.
So,
unfairly.
Terry, you probably know this. I was doing Toledo football at the time. Randy Moss's senior year with Chad Pennington. Okay.
Were you there during Toledo time?
I was. I
All right.
Toledo, Tommy Amstutz. But so Moss in the first Mid-American Conference game just lit up Toledo. And I had called all my buddies ahead of time. I said, you need to watch this game. This guy's a freak. Okay? I'd seen him already. He's a freak. So the first thing all my buddies say to me is like, okay, pull back the reins, Matt guy. And who did he do it against? And I go, a guy by the name of Clarence Love, who I guarantee you will be drafted in the first 3 rounds of the draft, okay? Clarence Love went in the 3rd round to the Raiders, played a few years in the National Football League. He absolutely ate up a guy that was a 3rd round pick and the support that came from the back end. Randy Moss was unbelievable. Terry, I'm with you. I think he's one of the biggest asses. Seriously, he is. No doubt about it. I mean, he's grown up. He's changed. I would no ill will on him. But at the time when he was a young man, I think Randy would admit himself, there was a reason people said the shit they said about him. Okay?
And it was more than the fact that he smoked weed.
Right. Would I have drafted him? In a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. Really.
All right, let me tell you my Randy Moss story. You remember at the Silverdome, they had that kitchen?
Yes.
And the media would go into the kitchen, the coaches would go into the kitchen, and the front office people from the Lions would go into the little kitchen in the Silverdome. So I went there, and Ron Hughes, who was the player personnel director / almost GM, whatever, was in there.
Draft guru.
And this after the draft, I'm like, dude, how come y'all didn't take Randy Moss? I said, you always on this, and I told him this choir boy bullshit. I said, the dude can play. And you know what he told me? He says, we didn't take Randy Moss because we thought he had character issues. That wasn't the issue. You don't know anything about football. He's got alligator arms. He's afraid to go over the middle. He's squeamish. He's scared. I said, that's bullshit.
That's why they didn't take him?
That's what he said.
Okay.
I don't believe it.
Okay.
I just remember, and yes, Central Michigan did not have great defensive backs. All I knew is when he was up at Kelly Short Stadium and we ran a route, there was fire on the carpet because he could play. But he had alligator arms.
His strides, when you watch that guy run, it didn't look like he was moving. And then he was 10 yards past you. You remember who the Lions took, by the way, Broder?
Terry Fair. What, pick 21? 21? One pick ahead.
And do you know what happened with Terry Fair?
18? Was it 8? No,
He had a decent first year, but they were so afraid of Randy Moss and his character issues. Do you know what Terry Fair did? He's at the nightclub downtown,
Of course.
got mad at a woman, punched a wall, and broke his hand. Now, people out there listening was saying, no, that never happened. I didn't read about that. No, you didn't. Here's what the Lions said. He got up in the morning, walked down his driveway to retrieve his paper, fell down, and broke his hand.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
hate when that happens.
And Moises Alou sneezed his
But-
back out.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you got like 150 people saying, no. He got mad at, what's the name of that place?
Legends?
Legends, yes.
Oh,
It was that's where you went.
I don't know what you're talking about.
No, that's where you used to go. Huh?
I'm having deja vu here.
They changed the name of it?
Buddy.
No, it's Legends, I think.
Unless they
swear,
changed
I
the name.
think.
The young people will know. They changed the name of it. We
Chat.
knew it as Legends.
Well, and it's funny because I think, Terry, some people still live in that world of, well, we can't take that guy. That isn't a guy that the Detroit Lions take. Is that still true? Because what Terry's Terry's spitting truth. There were guys that, I don't care who you were and what you did, the Lions, you were not going to be selected by this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't going to happen, okay? And the edict probably came down from the late Mr. Ford as well. Like, hey, man, we don't want that guy. You know, that
It did.
Yeah, right?
He's old curmudgeon.
So Terry, have we changed that? Do you think this is a franchise that now says, the hell with that? We built something special here. We built the culture. We're not so worried about that anymore. Are we at that point or not?
I don't think they're quite there,
Okay.
but they're getting there.
Okay.
Culture is still important to them, and it's important to me. You can't just, have a lawless locker room.
Sure.
But they've built it to this standpoint where you can withstand some bad dudes in there now.
That's the key. I've been going back and forth with Jay Thomas in the chat, kind of on this topic about you. If you're not worried about what that locker room culture is like, intangibles off the field with your quarterback, with guys in that locker room, then you're not a good organization. But what you guys are saying, there does come a time where it's okay to start taking some chances if you've built that locker room up enough. But the chances they're going to take are some questionable character concerns or this or that. What that player still has to have is that love for football. Like, they still have to be a football guy. They still have to live and breathe football. Maybe they make some immature decisions. Maybe they do. But as long as they are dedicated to that game, that's what they want in that locker room. And if they got some immaturity issues, they'll have the veterans and the leaders in that on that coaching staff to help iron it out. But if you got issues and, they show up to practice late, they don't really like to watch film, honestly, whatever they're saying about James Pierce, that's not the type of player that they want. They don't live and breathe football. They want Jack Campbells. Mm-hmm. They don't all have to be buttoned up like Jack Campbell, but they want someone who practice is over, you're going home and you're watching film. You're eating a protein day in and day out. You're waking up and you're watching film. You live football.
Plus, when you're in a room for 8 hours with Dan Campbell and what he's spitting out, you'll change. You may not love football when you walk in there, but at some point you're going to love it.
Yeah.
You're going to love playing for this man. And then the veterans are going to get you, say, hey, dude, it's not what we do.
Yeah.
You got
Let's roll, baby. Let's roll.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of Chris Spielmans in that room now. Where back in the day, Terry could tell you, Chris Spielman was a guy that a lot of times he grabbed a knucklehead by the scruff of the neck. Especially in the early 90s. I didn't start covering them until 95. But I heard some stories from the guys that were, Terry, and maybe you can talk to this, that the guys, the younger guys in the early portion, the glory year of 91 and everything, he was the type of guy, he'd grab you by the scruff of the neck and say, we don't do things like that. Mm-hmm. And guess what? You know what you're doing this week? You're coming to work out with me.
Yeah.
And there was nothing. I've heard the horror stories about the Chris Spielman workout sessions and everything. He made grown men buckle. I mean, that type of stuff. And I think the locker room's at such a place right now where there's probably a bunch of Chris Spielmans in there, T.
Yeah, there is. And they're serious because they feel they can win. Every year they walk in and they think they can win a championship. Yeah. And so they're not going to let you come in there and screw that up. They survived J-Mo, right?
Yep.
He's clowned. He's a clown, but the locker room didn't disintegrate because of him. Mm-hmm. And even J-Mo hasn't done things that really divide the locker room. Like, he got caught gambling. I'm sure a bunch of dudes in the locker room said, well, I do it too. You just didn't catch me.
Yeah.
And nor will you.
The irony that J-Mo got caught. It was like the only time last year he got caught.
See, I go back to the word that we used when we were talking about it earlier. Dumb. Get in your car, young man, and drive 100 yards down the road. You're away from the facility. Mm-hmm. Just go.
100 yards, 100 inches.
Right.
That's all you had to do.
Just
yeah.
like,
dumb.
seriously, dumb. That's just dumb stuff. And, it's like when you become a parent, okay? And Terry, it's the dumb shit that pissed me off. Like, more than anything, I'm serious. It's the dumb. Yeah, you know what I'm saying, right? There are times I looked at my son and I was like, what were you hoping to accomplish? Just for my own sanity, will you tell me what your thought process was? Oh, no. Well, then dumb took over. And I know dumb. And he definitely got the dumb gene from my side of the family. So that's the stuff that drives you out of your flipping mind. Yeah. It's the dumb shit.
Right. You know what this dad had to do? I had to teach my son how to shit. Because he kept flooding the toilet. I'm like, dude, we can't be buying floors every 6 months.
Yep.
You're going to have to learn how to poop, flush, wipe. With everything going down. Or else you got to get out of my house.
Terry's toilet training. Yes,
right.
If you're having problems, contact Terry Foster.
Because we can't afford this.
Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic. But I'm going to say it again, though. You can live with dumb stuff.
Yeah.
You can.
What Terry Bradshaw is, I may be dumb, but I'm not stupid.
Right.
As long as you're not making stupid mistakes. They're dumb.
It's funny you bring that up. People don't realize Terry Bradshaw. Terry Foster won 4 Super Bowls too. Terry Bradshaw, 4 Super Bowls. That was the big. He's just a big dumb boy from the South. And Hollywood Henderson, he can't spell cat. He didn't need to spell cat. He can throw touchdowns. Right.
He couldn't spell cat if you sported him the C and the T.
Yeah. Right.
That's a good line.
That's a kind of stuff and that's like when I hear people get down on J-Mo, and I get, like, I'm gonna say it again, I get it. The one thing that we all can relate to is one another, and how frustrating being a fan of this franchise has been. I get it, but I hope you understand is you're getting mad at JMO. Are you really mad at JMO, or are you mad at this franchise? Because I think a lot of times with the Lions, it's maybe misguided anger. Like I can tell you back in the day, people, especially in the aughts, man, you did this job, you had to be critical of the Detroit Lions, okay? Mm-hmm. People will get mad at you. People get mad at Terry. People get mad at me. Scathing emails and all that stuff. And I always used to say, I didn't do it. It's not my fault. It is not my fault that Rod Marinelli believes in the invisible. It is not. It's not my fault. I didn't do that. And so a lot of times it was misguided anger, and you tried not to take it personal. And I say that to anybody, and I don't know if anybody's in the chat. Let's look at the things that JMO's done. What's unforgivable?
None.
What's criminal?
None.
Right? Dumb? Yeah, dumb. Wrong place, wrong time stuff? Dumb. Okay? But what's that? We can't have this guy on the team.
No, none of that. But the gun incident could technically be illegal.
Dumb.
But it wasn't. You check the records with the state, you see nothing. What's stupid?
The police arrested his ass.
There's the dumb.
They did, and he almost found himself in a bad situation. Well, he was in a bad situation. He almost cost the Lions some games. But what's stupid is taking the win in overtime.
Oh, my God. There's some really, really dumb things the Lions did.
What's dumb is humping in the end zone after a touchdown.
You know what?
I'll take that dumb, though.
Lions,
I want more end zone humps,
The Lions
Terry.
were so bad, it caused this man to make national news.
Wait, what happened?
Which I told you have to talk about this week.
Oh!
I'm just hearing you guys talk about it. I have, honest to God, it has really affected my life, and it was affecting my life back then. So 2005, we were doing the post-game show, and I had been doing the post-game show for a few years for the radio station that I worked. And I'm not joking. I would come home from work, and my kids would kind of cower, and I was like, I can't let the Lions have this power over me, man, because you were in such a bad mood. If you remember, the Lions fired Steve Mariucci after Thanksgiving in 2005. And we decided that we were going to, and in the history of dumb ideas, this is up there, we were going to try to organize a march. And we called it the Angry Fan March. And according to the Detroit police, they said over 1,000 people were there and everything. And we basically started a few blocks away from Ford Field, carried signs. Fire Millen was huge back then. Everybody carried signs. It was dumb for two reasons. Number one, well, really multiple reasons. Number one, Terry, there could have been trouble. Thank the good Lord there wasn't trouble, okay? Number two, and Terry, you can definitely speak to this. Nobody told Mr. Ford how to run his play toy. Nobody. It was an exercise in futility. Mm-hmm. It really was. There was no way he was going to. If anything, this is my guess, I bet you he dug his heels in even deeper.
Amen.
He did. And so that's why when people ask me about it to this day, I regret it for those reasons, and I regret it for one more reason, okay? Because people thought exactly what we were just talking about. Oh, you hate the Lions. No, I love the Lions. I openly admit it. I'll say it to the day I die. I love the Lions. They've tortured my soul. They've taken years off my life, but I love this franchise. And I think that's what bothered me most. I had to have a conversation with our mutual friend Bill Keenest when everything was said and done. And I said to Bill, I never told somebody, don't go to the game. Never. No. And you know why I said that? I'd be the biggest hypocrite. I love taking my kid to the game. I had a little boy. Now, we didn't get a chance to do it during the regular season because I had a lot of responsibility. But you know what? If I had a chance to go to a preseason game, I did it. If I had a chance. But Terry, that whole week, it was like one night, it was MSNBC, then it was CNBC, then it was ESPN. We did all these things. And then the day comes and you're like, oh my gosh, what the hell did I do? Because if something goes south, you know who's going to get blamed? I'm done. I got a little baby at home. I got a 5-year-old at home. My ass is fired. And it was like one of those moments, like, what the did I do? But it was fun. Thank God everybody acted cool. It was not listened to. I mean, think about it. It was almost 3 years later where they finally fired Matt Millen. You had almost 3 more years of that. And think how much that put this franchise back. I mean, you fired this guy September 24th, 2008, and this franchise didn't get right for 3 years. It's insanity when you think about it. So,
And you know why they kept him? Because the front office was better organized. At least that's what old man Ford said.
Lord.
So you regret the Millen Man March?
100%.
Well, see, I don't regret. I'm glad you did it. Because to me it was fun. It's like I'm messing. It was fun to see people with orange jumpsuits saying fire Millen and finally protesting the Detroit Lions. Because from my perspective, I think the Lions were abusive to their fans.
100%.
Whatever the fans wanted, they'd do the exact opposite. They never talked about winning a championship. That wasn't top of their mind. And do you know why they hired Matt Millen? Because he's a good guy.
Oh, yeah. Who could forget?
He's a good guy.
People liked him around.
They liked him, and the people around the league are going to give him all their trade secrets on how to be champions. And that did not happen. And the other thing that we heard is, oh, Matt Millen, he's smart. He's going to learn on the job. No, he's not. There's certain jobs you don't learn on the job. You either can do it or you can't. You get trained to be put in that position. How would you like for your brain surgeon and they say, oh, he's going to learn on the job?
That's a good one.
I think you're in trouble.
Yeah,
You don't learn to run an organization on the job. Sorry.
I can't. I think back though, Terry. It's almost 20 years now. That's insanity, first and foremost. But there were things I didn't know about the franchise, and I should. And that's why I tell younger people all the time. Sometimes it's nice to ask some questions. Okay. You know what I didn't know at the time is what Terry knew. If anything, it was going to be worse. It was going to be detrimental to the future of the franchise. I'm convinced that Mr. Ford sat back in the ivory tower, crossed his arms, and said, "Nobody's going to tell me how to run my franchise." and look, let's be honest. Do you know what it took? Do you know what it took for him to finally fire Matt Millen?
What?
It took his own son to come out and bash the guy
Publicly. Yeah.
Really, that was kind of like the final straw.
He seems like a guy that he might have been waiting to fire Matt Millen in 2008, but because you did the Millen Man March, he's so stubborn. It's like, no, I'm going to prove them wrong.
Thanks, that makes me feel
I got
better
you.
about doing
He
it.
is all.
Thank you.
He was within 15 seconds of firing him, and then your March comes, and he said,
Here we go.
I can't
No.
let them win.
No.
What people don't understand, though, okay, is like behind the scenes, that was such a bad franchise.
Yeah.
It was so dysfunctional. They had just fired Mooch. You had multiple players in that locker room, like openly saying, Joey Harrington got him fired. I don't know the true story. Nobody was a fan of that guy.
Yeah.
It was a bad scene, man. It really was. Bad scene. And something had to be done, and, well, we know how that worked out.
Yeah.
Some of the players got into a heated argument the day he was fired.
Really?
Some said he was fired because of you,
Yep.
and you need to pick your game up. So yeah, it was ugly around there.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I don't have that experience of seeing the behind the scenes of an organization run like that. My only experience is in the last 3 years, being a part of being the beat writer and reporter for the Lions. You get to see how from top to bottom the organization is run so well. You see how Eamon Reynolds runs the PR team, and they win the Pete Rozelle Award. I don't know if they won it this year. They're winning awards for departments outside of the stuff we see and hear every day. It's from top to bottom. This organization's changed. Starts with Sheila Hamp, hiring Spielman, hiring Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes. They do these things that a lot of people thought were, risky or kind of odd moves. Hire the coach before the GM. Usually they come as a pair. No, we're going to do this right. We're going to change things. and it's from top to bottom.
There are a lot of stories out there, and I can't speak to this. You were closer to the situation than I've been the last couple of years. But what Terry said earlier, I don't think the average fan really understands. The bullshit. There were so many things that happened where there was a complete rewrite of what happened. And I understand that happens more often than we think. But I can't tell you how many times.
Yeah.
You didn't see what you saw. No, that's not how it happened. He slipped in his driveway. We have no intention of cutting John Joseph Harrington. Where the hell did you get that information from, right? I can't tell you how many times things like that happened. And Terry, you covered it as much as anybody. You know as much as anybody. That's just, you couldn't believe what came out.
I talked to a person who was interviewing for a front office job with the Lions, and so they brought him in, and he sat in on one of their meetings, and he brought up like 3 or 4 things that he wanted to do different. Here's what he was told. That's not the way we do things around here. And then he said, but you're one of the worst franchises, the last few years. He's being nice. In the last few years, they didn't hire him. Here's one. Bill Parcells, you brought him up earlier. Mm-hmm. Bill Parcells offered to come to Detroit, work in the front office, do some stuff. But you know why they didn't hire him? Because he said, I'm going to do it my way. You guys are idiots. I'm going to come in here and we're going to upset the apple cart. And they're like, no, because we would be hurting too many people, and we don't want to do that. Bill Parcells. The Lions have, over the years, have turned down. Hang on. The Lions.
Dan Campbell as our coach.
There's people who want to work for these idiots. But the Lions turned down Tony Dungy, Bill Parcells, and to a lesser extent, Denny Green. Because they wanted to come in here and do it their way.
Yeah.
It is, honestly, we talk so much about Jerry Jones, and obviously their level of success is inferior as it is. It still blows away what the Lions do. But that was our franchise.
Yeah.
No. We got this. We know what we're doing. Well, what are you basing that on? What on earth are you basing that on?
The invisible.
Right. That's exactly what it was. Because, honestly, especially once you got into the odds, okay? What were the high... I'll never forget. I had a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, the late Tom Kowalski. And so this is at the end of the decade. And I said, all right, you want to know everything about the Detroit Lions? And he was like, oh, this ought to be good. I was like, who was the Detroit Lions player of the decade from 2000 to 2010? And do you know who? Jason Hansen. It was. And every time he'd go, no, dude. And then he'd go, Porsche. No, it was only a couple years. Calvin. No, it was only a couple. Gosh damn it was Jason Hansen.
It was him.
That tells you everything you need to know about how bad this franchise was. So that's why, you know why I bring it up? Because we're in a wonderful place right now. We're in a place where we trust our general manager. We trust our coach. We trust our culture. And most importantly, we trust our owner. Yeah. I do. What could we bag on Sheila for, T?
She's old. That's about it. No, but now you can get into a conversation. Who is the player of the decade for the Lions? And you would get into a fight about who is it?
Right.
Is it Aiden Hutchinson? Is it Jared Goff? Is it St. Brown?
Penei?
You can name a bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
Back then.
Not done. He's not done. Let's wait and see. Give him a couple of years and see what he can add to the equation. Right?
He'll win an Offensive Player of the Year award.
But Terry, you're right. And like that's what getting competent people. I said for years, I refuse. I cannot accept the whole idea of fill in the blank franchise sucks and always is going to suck. Okay, because I lived in a world where the Golden State Warriors were just an awful franchise, and they became the model. I lived in a world where the Detroit Red Wings were an awful franchise, and they became a model. The New Jersey Devils, Wayne Gretzky doesn't say anything negative about anybody. And Wayne Gretzky called the New Jersey Devils a Mickey Mouse organization, right? I live in a world where it's amazing what happens when you get the right people in place. You get the right people in place, they bring in the right people, and all of a sudden you change things. And that's exactly what the Detroit Lions have done, man. We all have to own it.
Right. And what have Lion fans said for years? The Lions will never win as long as the Fords own the team. And they're kind of right. I find it ironic that Sheila doesn't use the name Ford anymore. It's Sheila Hamp. So technically, maybe they're right.
I think that proves just how shrewd of an owner she is. She knows every little detail. She just wants to shed that name. It's a new organization. And Terry, Sean, I just want your quick reaction to this comment from Derek Brown in the chat. It says, who cares about the Lions right now? It's April, man. Go.
NFL is a 12-month-a-year league.
The NFL is king, whether you like it or not.
We got the draft coming up. If you put a story in the newspaper and it's Detroit Lions, it's going to be number one over the Red Wings, over the Pistons, who are in the playoffs, by the way, over the Tigers, who actually look like they're pretty good. So that's why.
Yeah.
Derek, I am a hockey fan first. I will never hide it. I will never debate it. I can't wait to go watch 3 hockey games this very afternoon.
On Easter?
On Easter, yes.
Oh, wow. You're sick.
Absolutely. Very sick. 3, 7, and 10. You're lying to yourself if you don't understand that it is the Lions are king. The NFL is king. They flex their muscle every opportunity they can get. We were talking about this before the show started. I'm serious, okay? You guys, for the rest of you out there, could you guys watch Lion content every single day of the year? Because we say yes. There are people out there that could watch. You could just do a show like this every day of the year. And people would tap in. People would give their thoughts. People would talk about, T, I remember when you told everybody about this guy back in the day. Belegian, I remember when you lost your mind on that post-game show. Broder, I love that piece you did on the changing culture. All that shit. I mean, the Lions are the only one you can do that with. Yeah. The only other one that I think you could come close to is Michigan football. Like, honestly, I think those are the only 2 things that people would tap in on a daily basis. But the Lions, by far, Terry, by far. That's the way it is, man.
NFL's king, the Lions are king.
He said that about Michigan football with the Spartan hat on.
Well, it's true.
Because you speak the truth.
Speak the truth. Even when the Lions were bad, I mean, historically bad, they were the number 1 story in Detroit.
There have only been a couple times. I remember Terry, what's that guy's name? Carl Painter. The May Day play in 1988. People stopped coming to the Silverdome. Like, if you go back and look at the attendance, people stopped going. And then they drafted this guy named Barry Sanders. And you had, and then there was a little bit of time during the 08 season, towards the end of 07 into 08, where the crowds were less than. But everybody else, okay, you've been in Comerica Park when there are 278 people in there. I was in Joe Louis when there were, 3,000 people in there. I think the Pistons, both out of Palace and Little Caesars, speak for themselves. The Lions consistently bring people in. Other than those 2 little spaces in my life, that this is a football town.
Yeah, those are strike years.
Yeah. I mean, right. This is a football town, and the Lions are king. Period. End of story. I mean, we called it Radio Gold, Terry. Remember?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And when Barry Sanders played, you hear from so many people say, "I am not going to that damn stadium, but I'm only going there because of Barry Sanders." Yep. He brought people in there. Yep. And so the Silverdome wasn't packed because it was so big. It was 80,400. But they still be 74,000, 75,000, which is ridiculous for a bad franchise.
Yeah.
The whole idea of blackouts is so foreign to my kids.
Wild.
Dad, wait a second. You couldn't watch the Lions? Yeah, multiple times a year. What do you mean? Game wasn't on. You couldn't, Jack. We didn't have those things back then. We didn't have those things where I could turn my antenna a little bit this way or that. There were multiple games a year, Terry, we couldn't watch on TV. It's insane when you think about it. It really is.
Or you could drive to Toledo and see them.
True.
It's a true story.
True
story. So, good stuff,
Or
fellas.
Grand Rapids,
Yeah.
right?
Any bold predictions or anything about the draft? We got a couple days. We're wrapping up the show. Anything on your mind about this draft?
All right.
I think that the Lions draft a tight end, and I think that they draft Harold Fanion in the 3rd round. I'm
Out of Bowling
100%
Green?
with Neil. I'm
That
with Neil
early?
100%.
That early. I think they draft a tight end too later.
I mean, I think Fanion is just such a value. Like, I see him going in the 3rd all the time, and if you've seen him play, he looks like a prototypical receiving threat tight end, and he's just a monster of a human
Kyle
being.
Pitts. The next Kyle Pitts.
I'm
Remember
not gonna
he's
go
going to
that
change
far.
the world.
You know what, Bronco Jesus? I didn't ask you. Are the Lions going to draft an edge rusher in the first round?
I don't think so. I think that interior offensive linemen, interior defensive linemen, because I have a really big feeling that Kenneth Grant's going to fall that far. But I do not really see him picking an edge. I heard a lot of negativity towards the Lions and James Pierce, so I don't think they're going to go there, and that's the BPA at edge. And at that point, I think you're dropping down into the Josiah Stewart, Ivy, Kyle Kennard range of edge rusher trying to get someone in the 2nd or the 3rd round.
Now, I would draft James Pierce. He's bust or boom or bust, however you want to say it. I would take that chance on him. I mean, especially.
I'm down to clown. It's just as a matter of Brad Holmes down to clown.
We're not the franchise anymore that if you miss on that, holy shit, we're screwed.
I don't think that
We're
the-
strong enough to take
Yeah.
that gamble. Now, are they going to do it? No way. My jaw would drop. Would I do it, Terry? To your point, absolutely. I'd do it. Yep, wouldn't think twice about it.
Bam.
All right, boys, happy Easter to all you.
Happy Easter. What are you doing for Easter today?
Got a prime rib, got a ham. So, yeah, good times.
Damn, we're
Prime
going to see
rib.
you.
Yeah, got to scoot off to church and all that, but one of the, you know how it is originally there were like 7 people coming over. Now magically there are like 19 people coming over. It's
Weird.
amazing how that works.
That prime rib does it.
That prime rib does.
Yeah.
How about you guys? What are you doing?
I'm having brunch with the wife
Oh, good for you.
and her brother.
Good for you.
And
Bro,
then
Yep, doing family stuff all day. We got dinner later. Gonna be a day. It's beautiful out here in Detroit.
it
You guys
is.
enjoy. Thanks to the fellas in here too. Great.
Thank you,
Great
gentlemen.
show.
Justin, Kool-Aid, Terry.
Yes.
Great
and,
show.
And the lefty.
All right.
And
Let's do it again next week.
How
the
about it?
21 run over here.
We'll be debunking the NFL draft next week. It'll
Yes.
be over. That's
Yes.
gonna be
right.
fun.
Yes.
That's gonna be fun.
Looking forward to it.
We'll talk about that first round tight end in the Lions draft. Can't wait. All right, everybody. Happy Easter.
Happy 420.